Breaking news out of Atlanta. Just minutes ago, we learned the district attorney in Fulton County is requesting a special grand jury with subpoena power. And the target of this investigation is former President Donald Trump and his efforts to overturn Georgia's 2020 election. CNN's Sarah Murray is joining us now. What have you learned, Sarah?
Well, look, she has sent this letter requesting a special grand jury. She wants to be able to subpoena witnesses. She wants to be able to make it a little bit easier to collect evidence. And this all goes back, to the efforts that Donald Trump and also his allies made to try to overturn Georgia's election results in 2020. District Attorney Fani Willis announced her investigation after that now infamous phone call Donald Trump had with Brad Raffensperger. Here is a little bit, just a reminder of viewers, of what went on during that phone call.
But they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
So you hear him there telling Brad Raffensperger he wants him to find the votes. We know the district attorney is also looking at a number of actions taken by Donald Trump's allies to try to further this campaign to overturn the Georgia elections. So in this letter that she sent to the court, she says that, they've talked to folks who are reluctant to speak to her unless they're under subpoena. And part of that letter, she says, by way of example, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, an essential witness to the investigation, has indicated that he will not participate in an interview or otherwise offer evidence until he is presented with a subpoena by my office. Now, we should note the Secretary of State's office has already provided the district attorney with a bunch of information, including recordings of that Raffensperger call and a call with another official. But essentially what this letter tells you is that she's serious about pursuing a potential criminal indictment either against former President Donald Trump or allies who were helping him with this campaign in Georgia. It's not a done deal that she will get the special grand jury. There are judges who have to sign off on this request, but it tells you how serious she is in this pursuit, Anna.
Sarah Murray, thank you for laying it out. And joining us now to discuss this huge development, Ellie Honig, CNN senior legal analyst and former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, and Asha Rangappa, CNN legal and national security analyst. She is also a former FBI special agent. Good to see you both. Ellie, if you are the prosecutor here, why make this move and why now?
Well, Anna, two reasons. First of all, it's time to play hardball. This district attorney has said, I need to speak with witnesses, and several of them, she says in her letter, have not agreed to speak with me voluntarily. That's why you need a grand jury. Grand juries issue subpoenas. Subpoena is a formal command that you must testify. That's enforceable by the courts and ultimately, potentially by law enforcement. So that's how you get people who may be reluctant to testify. The second reason is focus. Normal grand juries, your everyday grand juries, first of all, they only sit for a limited amount of time, could be a month, could be a couple months, and they're hearing different cases all throughout the day. By asking for a special investigative grand jury, the DA here is looking for a grand jury that will be solely dedicated to this case and that can sit for a longer period as long as she needs.
I want to play what this district attorney said in February of last year about what prosecutors assess when considering potential charges.
You look at facts to see, did they really have intent? Did they understand what they were doing? Detailed facts become important, like asking for a specific number and then going back to investigate and understand that that number is just one more than the number that is needed. It lets you know that someone had a clear mind, they understood what they were doing, and so when you're pursuing the investigation, facts like that that may not seem so important become very important.
Asha, we are not there yet, but what charges could Trump face here? Should he be worried?
He should definitely be worried. I mean, there are a host of charges surrounding fraud, election fraud, pressuring officials to commit fraud. But, the bigger picture here is that the walls are closing in on Trump on a number of fronts, including at the state level. In addition to the Fulton DA, he has a case in New York at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office that's looking into the Trump Organization. The Department of Justice is likely looking into these attempts to obstruct the congressional electoral count proceedings. The New York AG has a civil suit that could turn criminal if it uncovers criminal activity. And so all of these are, basically tentacles of liability that are closing in on Trump. And this one in particular, Anna, relates to the January 6th committee and potentially to a DOJ investigation, because all roads lead back to Trump attempting to call the outcome of the election into question so that the final certification could be, contested. And on this front, we know that the Department of Justice, for example, was also trying to pressure Georgia officials to open cases on based on false claims of voter fraud in that state. So all of these are connected and are bad news for Trump.
You're right. They all are connected in different ways, and we see parallel processes taking place. In all of them, we are seeing the need to compel people to testify in order to make sure that the case is airtight, right? And in this particular case, the Fulton County District Attorney is saying one reason to move to have a special grand jury is to subpoena the likes of people like Brad Raffensperger, who she says won't do an interview or provide certain information without a subpoena. So, Asha, how crucial would his testimony be in this case?
His testimony is very crucial in terms of, outlining exactly, how, we have the phone call, but also how he interpreted that call. Were there any other efforts being made outside of that phone call to pressure him to find these votes, I'm sorry, I think it's very important for him to get this testimony, also to have it under oath. And for him specifically, Anna, he's doing this for political cover as well, because he wants to be seen as doing this under compulsion as opposed to, voluntarily, because he has to try to stay in the good graces of the Republican Party.
Right. He's up for re-election. Ellie, walk us through the process here. How does it work with a special grand jury?
So the first step is what we just saw the DA do just now. She has to send a letter to the chief judge requesting permission to have this special grand jury. The judges as a group will then vote on whether to grant that request. If this happens, we will have a special grand jury seated. That special grand jury will have a couple of really important powers. One is they can issue subpoenas, so they can get testimony, compel testimony out of Brad Raffensperger. That's the person she singles out in the letter, and others. They also can inspect records, so they can serve a subpoena saying, hey, I want to see whatever documents you have relating to this. But it's important to note, the DA says in her letter, I am not asking for this special grand jury to have the power to indict. Usually grand juries have the power to indict, but the DA here says, I'm not asking for that here. However, this grand jury may have the power to recommend criminal charges back to me, presumably meaning the district attorney.
Asha, do you think the Supreme Court ruling last night on the Trump White House records has any impact on this investigation?
I think it does, because all of these records are going to go to the overall effort, as I mentioned before, Anna, the overall effort to try to call the election results into doubt. And so it will provide a good reference point, a documentary trail, a communications trail of what was going on behind the scenes in terms of the intent in pursuing all of these different avenues to pressure individuals, to pressure state legislatures in order to achieve Trump's agenda of trying to, stay in power.